All right, welcome to my first winter wrap-up. I'm trying out winter wrap-ups, spring wrap-ups, etc. And how it's just going to be is it's on the month. So, like, I think next year if I keep this up, it would be December, January, and February. But I already talked about December books in a December wrap-up, so this is just January and February. I've read 17 things. I have put them into genre categories, for the most part, and I have some superlatives. So as we go through, I will discuss best new book, most surprising, disappointing, best cover, best experience, which is not always the same as the best book, and best audio narrator, and also my opinion of best cover, because I just thought that'd be fun. If you want my experience along the way, or if you just want to hear, I don't know, my middle thoughts and then end thoughts, I do Friday reads every month on my channel. There's a playlist for it somewhere. So this is going to just be a summation of my thoughts. Let's start with books I read for my book club, which is not a genre, but I feel like it catches all of the things that I'm reading that feel kind of random. So for my book club, we read 3 things this winter so far. One of them being The Employees. What a weird book. What a weird book. This actually has won best experience, okay? And hear me out, because I don't, love this book. It's like a 3.5 star. Maybe if I include the experience at the book club reading, it's like a 4 star. But, in the moment reading it, it's a little weird and tedious for me. This is a book where we have people on a planet space station, and they're the employees. And you're, getting told this in logs. So think of it like a video game, where you just get, the only plot comes from picking up journal entries. And then the journal entries just, you're sort of getting a chronological event, but it also feels a little disjointed. Some people are people, and some people are droids. And I say this, but, what's the difference? And that's part of the plot. There are these objects that are truly in this because the author once went to a museum and was inspired. And they're very weird in what they represent. And it's a fascinating thing to discuss with others. I mean, when I read it in isolation, I'm like, I sort of kind of understand, but don't really understand. I am someone who doesn't necessarily pick up on, humor while I'm reading it. That's this type of humor. But then once I was at book club and we were talking about the funny moments, I'm like, actually, that is really funny. When we were picking out the things, it was a really good time. So, highly recommend it for a book club, especially if, you have people who won't read long things. This was really short. Very unique format. It was funny, as I was reading, I'm like, I bet this was nominated for the Ursula K. Le Guin Award in Fiction, because there's one year that I haven't read, and it was nominated for that year. So, go figure. I was definitely right. Another one we read is The Origin of Others. This is an essay collection. It's kind of based off the lectures she gave at Harvard, Toni Morrison, about why we have the other in fiction. Just a lot of musings, and she's really very smart. She doesn't hold your hand and help you come to her conclusions. There are some things where I don't think I follow her train of thought. Again, it was great discussing it with people, but I do feel like sometimes we discuss the work, but more often than not, we discussed just the issues that resonated with us. This was published originally 10 years ago, and it's even more relevant now. And part of why we read it is because we're doing a year of Toni Morrison in Ohio, because she's from Ohio, and so a bunch of cities are doing different events, and so I'm glad I read it. I generally feel a little too dumb for it. It's not bad, but I feel like I would have rather have seen the lectures than read the lectures, if that makes sense in terms of an adaptation sort of scenario. So, again, it's a 3.5, which is a totally fine rating for me. Probably blasphemy, but that's how I feel. And then the one we read, that's probably my lowest rating, but I learned the most, is You Dreamed of Empires, which is a Mexican author, translated from Spanish to English. And it is about the fall of the Aztec Empire, sort of. Not really. It's kind of like the days leading up to the fall. And it's just so weird. I think it makes a lot more sense if you already know the history. Now, what was fun is when I was at book club, we discussed the history. I learned about what we did and didn't know about these people. We talked about older cities. And so I think that context can really help. I think it really does a cool job of showing you how strange things look from each perspective. And I really do like how many of the main characters were from like the Aztec Empire. Yeah, I am glad it exists. I'm so glad it exists. I don't think there are many pieces of fiction like this. But at times it really was a fever dream, and it wasn't like my brand of fever dream. So it was a little more work than fun, but the conversation was very engaging. So that was book club. Then another category that I don't normally have, but I've been doing it more this year, and I'm not hating it, but we got comics. And this is another reason why like I've been doing this hardest reading challenge you will ever do. And it's really been helping me push outside my comfort zone in a way that I think has been rewarding. And one of those things is I don't normally prioritize comics, webcomics, graphic novels, because they really aren't my preferred media. And that's still true. I haven't been swayed otherwise. But I have been pushed outside my comfort zone. And I finally got to finish the webcomic Check Please, which is delightful. I don't know. I love Biddy. I love the team. It's just full of joy. And it's just a really good time. I think it's just something I really hope gets adapted one day. Like, I know there's, like, a plethora of hockey romances in the world, but, like, this is one of the OG ones that I adore. It has, like, all of the things that people like in Heated Rivalry, like, exist here. Like, do you like the sweet couple? Do you like the whole, like, will they, won't they? Are they adversaries to lovers? Like, it has both of those things. And I really enjoy Check Please. The one that has won my most surprising of the month is Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. First of all, it was surprising because Ryan bought it for me for Valentine's Day. It did not exist in this house, okay? Second of all, I was just shocked at how much I liked it. The art is amazing. Sometimes I will be consuming graphic novels and the art is just serviceable. It's just there. No, these panels are stunning, okay? The art is so good. And I really liked the story. I really like Supergirl as a character. If you are a woman who grew up too fast, yeah, you might see yourself here. If you are a father of a daughter, you might have emotions. But it's beautiful. It has some really good, like, almost one-offs, but then the cohesive arc. And it starts with a bang. It, like, starts with some high-tier emotional manipulation, which, like, I didn't mind, but I was also, like, I literally yelled at Ryan across the house, like, if this ends a certain way, you're awful. Like, I was very concerned. But this was my biggest surprise for a lot of reasons. I really wasn't expecting to consume it. I'm excited that this is the source material that the movie we're getting this summer is inspired by. I don't know how close of an adaptation it'll be. I don't think it ever has to be a one-to-one. I'm just excited because I do love this characterization of Supergirl. Like, she's never been a character that I have loved. I don't necessarily think she's gotten a chance to be her own person a lot of the times. Like, I had never watched past season 1 of the Supergirl TV show, but even then it was just, like, female Clark Kent, which is fine, but it wasn't like, you know, this feels like, yeah, she has her own story because she has her own relationship with the planet Krypton, and yeah, it's great. Let's get into fantasy. We'll do fantasy next. What is in this category for fantasy? All right, I'm just checking up on my superlatives. And I think we'll just do this in the order in which I read them, starting with Paladin of Souls. I love Bejeweled. This is not a surprise. This was a very good book. It's been a very long time since I've talked about it at this point. There's a character in The Curse of Chalian who most people kind of don't take seriously because she had the curse on her and, like, she has some issues. But in this book, Paladin of Souls, she gets to basically go through a midlife crisis of finding herself, of finding her agency, of speaking her own voice. And so it's just like this pilgrimage she goes on. And also, the gods are forcing her to solve yet another problem. And she is so sassy. Oh, she's so sassy. I really love her. I don't know. And, like, I love just the premise of, like, this story is about a 40-year-old, you know, trying to figure out what her next chapter in life is gonna be. I think that's amazing. And it has classic whimsy and snark. And, I mean, it's nothing like T. Kingfisher. Like, I really don't want to compare it to it, but if you want someone that balances a lot of disjointed tones in one place, I really think Bejeweled is someone you have to try out. I would say you should read The Curse of Chalion first. It gives you world-building information. You get some backstory for this character. Do you need it for this? Probably not, but you might be confused in terms of the world, although it is heavily inspired by European history, I feel, the world building. But I do love how the gods work. I do love how, like, souls and demons and things work. I'm so excited to finish off this trilogy and then get to the Pendrick and Desdemona books. I am so pumped. We have To Shape a Dragon's Breath, first book in a trilogy, I believe. This was really fun. It's a school with dragons. It's in a place very much inspired by the Americas. And I really like that the main character really stood up for herself a lot. She really did. She was constantly correcting people on her name and her culture. And she was just like a very refreshing take of fish out of water in magic school, which I feel like is like pretty standard in magic school. Like you always have to be special or other or something for the magic school trope to really work, I think. I don't know many where you are the average normal person and the magic school book starts. Like, I don't know. So I really enjoyed all the parallels. I enjoyed the friend group. I like a magic school book. This felt good. I liked where it ended, and I am hoping to get to the sequel fairly soon. One of my favorite new releases of the year so far, and I think I've been doing just like fairly good on new releases, but this one, like, sung for me in a special way, and this is City of Others. This is one of my 2 picks for best cover. I couldn't really decide. But I really like the colors, the tentacles, the font. Like, I really like this cover. I think that's why I asked for it, an arc of it. Like, I just liked the cover. There's a little ghost cat with a scarf. Like, everything about this cover, I really adore. So, in this, we have Ben, who works in this really understaffed part of the government. And they are basically the department that makes sure, like, it's a classic, like, urban fantasy sort of thing. There's the magical side and the normal side. And technically, normal people sort of know there's a magical side, but they also, like, it's kind of just always in their blind spot. And it's their job to basically make sure it stays in their blind spot. Very Men in Black with the aliens, but instead it's supernatural things. And there's a big thing that's about to happen. Like, it's basically like if this was a TV show, this is like a 2-parter big deal episode, either at the midway of the season or the end of the season. And it has all those found family dynamics. We have the whole main character having to deal with not trusting people enough and letting people in. He has a really cool magic system with his garden. Like, I don't know. It's just really fun. I had a really good time. I would read so many books in this world. Like, so many. It's also in Singapore. So if you're just, like, ever wanted to just, like, be in the city of Singapore in a fun fantasy novel, I also enjoyed that. Because I like traveling like that. I think some people like traveling to a fantasy world. I don't think I care about that as much, but I do love when an author effectively helps me travel to a city, like, in our world. Because there are so many cities I'll never get to go to. So that one was really fun. And I guess we'll talk about my runner-up for best cover, or maybe it's neck and neck. I can't decide. It's Son of the Morning by Akoi Kiyomezi. This, if I had more romance books, would have been in like a romance category. But actually, apparently, I didn't really read romance books in the past couple months. Which probably means my mental health's okay. I don't really know. But this is a romantasy that deserves more love by like a lot. This cover, especially the naked hardback, goes so hard. Like, so hard. I love it. We were just sharing pictures of it in my Discord. So this is a very, like, emotional, interpersonal relationship kind of plot drama sort of book. We start off with our main character, who is obviously special, even special among her family of very special, sort of spiritually witchy people. Witchy's not the right word, but it's just very obvious that the women that she's been raised around all have gifts. But even she is special in comparison to that. And then she goes to college in the real world, has some human friends, and ends up going to a party where she ends up meeting Lucifer. And it is that Lucifer. And then they have instant chemistry, and it triggers a cascade of events that are one part erotica and another part romantic fantasy. The state of the world, well, not state of the world, but state of, like, it's medium high stakes, you know, like, it's just very melodramatic, and also it feels so fast, but also you just get swept up in the melodrama of it all. If you don't like erotic things, probably won't enjoy those scenes very much, but I thought this was great. A very high quality version of what you can find in the genre, especially if it has your tropes. I just really enjoyed it. I really did. And like I said, I think it deserves more love by like a lot. So now let's go to my best audiobook. And this will come as no surprise, but I read The Mask of Mirrors. Still so good. Like, most of the time I listen to an audiobook to help me do a task that I don't want to be doing, like driving to work or something like that. I don't know, doing laundry, doing yard work, shoveling, I don't know, stuff. The Mask of Mirrors was one where I was excited to do the task so I could get to the book. And yes, it's one of my favorite books, but I do feel like, especially if you're immersion reading, especially if you're rereading, the audio narrator goes so hard. This is a very culturally well-built world, and it has many different accents. And the author didn't have to do, like, different accents for each culture, but there are 4 accent types. And she does all 4, and they are heavily inspired by ours. Like, one is, like, Irish, one is Eastern European, one is British, one's American. So it's not like she's making up her own accents. But then even as we have 2 characters that code switch, and she in their heads will use the appropriate accent depending on which part of their code switching. And it works so well for me. And obviously this is like the 4th time I've read this book, so I adore it. But I just think the audiobooks are so good. They are so good. So I'm excited to eventually get to The Liar's Knot. If I get my March TBR accomplished, I'm going to let myself get to it. But I first want to accomplish what's on the March TBR before I start another, very long audiobook. And then the last fantasy, horror sort of thing is What Stalks the Deep. This is the 3rd book in the Sworn Soldier series. I find these novellas to be pretty good, but they don't stick with me. I don't find this one to be that different. It's in the Americas. There's a cave. It's very claustrophobic. I think if I let myself be scared, I would have been more freaked out, but I didn't want to be scared. I picked this up purely for, like, one of the squares for my Herkid, and I didn't even end up using it for another one, but that's okay. It didn't take too much of my time. But in general, this series isn't, like, a favorite of mine. I think it's fine. But it also isn't like the Malka Older series that I really like to read in terms of novella series. And obviously I'm a hard sell on a novella at the best of times. But yeah, it was fine. It was pretty fine. And now we'll get to science fiction. We have 2 more superlatives. The most disappointing and the best. So let's get it out of the way. The most disappointing. That would be Future's Edge. Yeah, what a nothing burger of a book for me. What even happened? I mean, it's got some cliche setup where our main character has infected herself with some alien parasite that gives her special powers, and she did it because she was lovesick and distracted at work. Sure. Like, whatever. There are worse premises. There are infinitely better premises. Infinitely better premises. There are worse. This is, like I said, nothing burger. It's like 200 pages. The ending kind of sucks. Like, for the most part, I was like just having like a fine, I'm not that interested time. But like, I really don't like the ending. Like, I really don't like the ending. Which I won't talk about because like, it's the ending. But there's like a lot of gobbledygook words to try and explain what is happening and why is like the end of the days coming to the galaxy, to all living things. And it just wasn't doing much for me. Like I said, for the first 75%, it just wasn't doing much for me. And then the last quarter, I'm like, this is stupid. So, pretty disappointed in that one. It is unfortunately not an author I'll probably be like itching to check out. I mainly picked it up because of a book haul I had a year ago? Yeah, like a year ago. Maybe like 10 months ago. The rest are pretty good. I also read The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. My first Ursula K. Le Guin in like 8 years. And I think I've read both of her driest, densest, longest ones so far. Because I read The Left Hand of Darkness 8 years ago, and now I've read The Dispossessed. Having read other books this month that I felt did similar theme work, I really didn't enjoy The Dispossessed. It was okay. And here's the thing. If I will give it extra points because it is revolutionary for the time in which it came out, and it's of course like necessary for me to have a lot of the science fiction I have now because it inspired so many authors that I love. So like my viewpoint on my enjoyment of reading it doesn't negate its influence. But in 2026, it was one of those things where if you didn't tell me this was written by a woman, I wouldn't know. Like, I wouldn't know. And part of that is apparently someone had told me in one of my comments that at this point in her writing, she was writing like a lot of the people who were getting published, which were men. So fair. But like we have, what's his name? I don't even remember his name, but we have this person. The whole premise of The Dispossessed is we kind of have this moon colony that's like an experiment. They are like socialism without authoritarianism. And he's from there, he's a physicist, and he gets the opportunity to go to the source world that is like capitalism, normal nonsense. There is totalitarianism and stuff like that. It feels familiar. Unfortunately, not much has changed since she wrote this book in the 70s. And it's, you go back and forth, like you flash back to the moon thing, and then you're on Earth for the present day. And he's not very interesting, just like as a person to me. And I think the thought experiment is cool, but I never got to like be in it in a way that I thought was cool. Like, I don't know. It just was really dry for me. I wasn't emotionally attached. And then it did a thing that I truly believe is completely unnecessary and just gives you the ick. And again, it's a quality of its time that exists. It's there because that was a trope, almost, to just have that happen. And there wasn't even like, if you're going to do this thing that gives you the ick, then you're supposed to then follow through with how that made the character feel, because it was so out of character for you're supposed to then like have a falling action if you're going to do the ick. But we didn't. It was just like, and then of course he did it because he's, you know, a fish out of water, very stranger in a strange land. Like, no, this is stupid. That really left a bad taste in my mouth. In addition to the fact that like the actual thought experiment I thought was too long for the book and what it was doing. And like I said, I've read things that are so inspired by this. I've already gotten to play around in the sandbox, and I didn't always agree with her takes, but I was like fine listening to her takes, and it was fine. It was fine. I got to discuss it in my Patreon, and so that was a good time, but I'm still not loving Ursula K. Le Guin books as much as I love The Award in her name. Alas. Next up, we have Where the Axe is Buried, which I think is really good. I don't think it's great, but I think it's a really solid book. Like, I had a solid 4-star time with this book. This is created in the year 2025 book. Well, obviously it was probably written in 2023, 2024, but when it came out, it does some fascinating things with AI and government. We have some really interesting totalitarian government things going on. We have like the whole idea of revolution and what you're supposed to do, what you should do, what are you setting up for others, the never-ending cycles. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it also just had a bit more like plot meat for me to be intrigued by. Like, so what is happening? What are we doing? What did she create? Like, I was just very enthralled. Again, I don't think it's groundbreaking, but I think it's a really solid version of what it is. It didn't overstay its welcome. It's like 300 pages. And definitely one that surprised me in that, like, I had a better time than I thought I would. And, like, that's how I felt about The Tusk of Extinction. So I need to go back and read his other book. But, like, he's been a solid new voice in science fiction for me. Like, not groundbreaking, but, like, I have been having fun with the ideas he's playing with. And then before we get to the best book, which I'm sure if you've been watching my Friday reads, you know what the best book is. But let's talk about Operation Bounce House, which is my first attempt at a Matt Dittman book, author of that Dungeon Crawler Carl book, which I'm finally learning how to say. It is quite the tongue twister. That book was fine. I think a little long. If it was a little shorter, I would have liked it more. I think. And it's not even that long. I don't know. It was very action-packed. It was incredibly action-packed. I much more preferred the world building. Like, I think the world is cool. I liked the character dynamics. But then I had to watch them just get ready for a siege over and over and over again. And I just didn't like that part. Like, the part that feels like you're in the video, like, my best analogy, and it's only because that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm playing Expedition 33, and it has a really good balance of you're doing all the fighty stuff, and then you get some plot, and you do all the fighty stuff, and then you get some plot. That's fun if you're in the video game doing the fighty stuff. Me reading it and not seeing it, less fun. Infinitely less fun for me, because I'm not an action person. So I liked the world building, I liked the plot reveals, I liked the character dynamics, like I liked all of those things. But I vastly didn't like the fight scenes, you know? Thematically, it's fine. Fairly on the nose, but it didn't, like, bother me with its theme. I agree with its theme. And it wasn't, like, so loud that I was like, oh my god, roll my eyes. Like, of course, this is the take you're gonna have. And I actually liked where the ending went. The ending kind of surprised me. So it was fine. This was a fine book. I don't know what score I've given it. It's probably a 3.5 to a 4-star. Like, it would for sure be a 4-star if there was less action. So I just haven't, like, decided. Like, it's gonna be a 3.5. But then, like I said, the ending kind of impressed me. And I don't do quarter stars. So, you know, you see a number. I don't know what it is yet. And then the last book, my best book of the winter, probably, even though, like, it maybe wasn't always the most fun to read, but, like, truly the best, like, quality book was Slow Gods. Ugh, so good. Reading Slow Gods right after The Dispossessed, I was like, yeah, this is what I wanted. Like, this is what I wanted. If we were going to explore different types of cultures, this is what I wanted. Like, if you want a cultural slow burn space opera, this all the way. Our main character, he is, as he says, a poor imitation of himself. And already, for me, that's catnip. I'm like, how? What are you? Okay. And that, like, slowly gets unpacked throughout the book. Like, I'm not gonna say that you ever feel completely satisfied with your answer, but, like, you keep learning about how he went from, like, a human to this immortal thing. And then as you learn his story, which is very much like a Homeric epic in some ways, you get to go to different places, because this is all during a time period where these binary stars are going to create a supernova, which is going to cause the death of a lot of planets. And so we get to start at the planet where he's from, which is like such a capitalistic hellscape. We get to go to another one that is really different, has a relationship with songs and language, and it's very rich, and how they respond to catastrophe is so fascinating compared to what the Shine are doing. And then we get to go to this other place that's going to be invaded, and you get to be at a summit where a war thing's going to happen. You just get to... It's so lived in, and we get to do this from this, like, omnipotent, observational thing while we learn about this individual. And there were so many emotional moments, and then at the end, when we get to learn a little bit more about what's going on and why things are happening, I really found it quite satisfying. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's ambitious and satisfying and easily the best book from 2025 that I've read. Easily. Because it's swung for the fences. It's really well thought out. If you can get behind the dense cultural world building, I think it is worth your time. It's dense, though. I somehow did this primarily on audiobook, and I would not recommend that. Not that the audio narrator is bad, but there's a lot of unique names and pronouns, and it's in depth. It's a lot. But also, it's a well-lived-in world, and I was fascinated by it. So if you like to bumble about and learn about a world and be intrigued by mysteries of the universe, I think it's a good time. And if you want to have, like, political discussions and lines that resonate with where we are now, but in a far-off galaxy, but also there's some things that are so timeless. Like, this is thematically rich. I really, really enjoyed it. So that's been what I read over winter. And I will update you in a few months of everything I've read in the next 3 months. And we'll see if we keep liking this. If you like the superlatives, if you don't like the superlatives, let me know down below. And like I said, if you ever want my in-the-moment thoughts, every Friday I talk about what I'm reading, and that's always on a playlist. If you just want to leave an emoji to let me know you're here, Ooh, my best cover had tentacles. So let's do anything with tentacles. So octopus, if you can find a Cthulhu tentacle, let's do it. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.